Wearing ratty jackets from Stephen Barry's. Praying one day Big Red will win the NIT.
Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water of meats.
Ham is the water of meats.
No more need for
Ham is the
bacon.
water of meats. Ham is the water of meats.
We had a winnable game.
Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water.
There he is, Jack Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to say that I observed firsthand his deck the other night. I stood on it, did not fall through to the bottom of the earth.
Jack, what's up with this, man? I didn't get a text. Is it because I want Frost fired? Is that what's going on?
Everyone knew you wouldn't come. I just didn't want to feel that rejection.
Jack, we can't hear you yet. Restart.
What's that? Oh, I said everybody knew you wouldn't come. I just I couldn't handle that rejection. I got enough that goes wrong during my weekends. My weekend where I don't have any emotional distress, the last thing I need is hearing you say, hey, I'm not going to drive to Lincoln for your deck grand opening.
Man, I would have come.
No, you wouldn't have.
No, my girlfriend's been sick. I've been having to take care of the dog solo last week.
I don't need that in my life.
I know. Are we going to do a Wang Nachos this year? I miss watching games together.
I don't know. Don't the Cowboys play the Vikings soon?
Yeah, they play on Sunday, but Shafe and I have agreed we probably shouldn't watch it together again.
Oh,
wow. Shafe and I watched the Cowboys-Rams game together.
Honestly,
a Rams-Vikings game together on a Wang Nachos. Watched it outside. I was perfectly well behaved.
Honestly, it was fine. It's just we decided we are both going to be psychos, so it'd be more fun to just watch a regular Sunday where we're not playing each other. That's what we decided to do. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe. Hold on. I have a suggestion. I don't know. One of you guys will probably have to do Big Red overreaction. I thought we could do Wang Nachos. No, for the after the Nebraska-Wisconsin game, the Bud Crawford fight. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, I can look. A lot of other people have gotten out of doing overreaction this year, so maybe I'll just hand it off to somebody else.
Well, we've done it in people's backyards before too.
Yes, we have. Is your leg recovered from that, by the way?
Yeah, it's still there's still a rash.
Still
so you're saying, Jack, we could do overreaction from your backyard?
I'm sure my wife would love that. Yeah, I'm sure that'd be great.
Do you want to do it, John? It's supposed to be Damon and me that day. I don't think Damon is.
I don't want Damon won't go for that.
The Wisconsin game.
I'm trying to.
Damon doesn't leave Omaha unless it's for sporting events that he has to go to, which is understandable. I get it. I'd be the same way.
That's why I didn't invite him to the deck party.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We could have like a live viewing audience. That's right.
That's when I'll be in the islands.
John will be in
I'll be in
on a
Islands.
beach. Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, man.
Yeah, at least the last time Creighton played in this tournament, it was the Maryland game. So I had to watch the Maryland game. You know, the one that who was that?
2016.
Who was that quarterback that started?
Not Tommy. You're talking about. It was Riker Fife.
Riker Fife. The Riker Fife game.
Oh, that game was terrible.
I watched that game on a beach.
It's like 24-0 or something.
Yeah,
just a bad football game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the only thing that was good was I was laying on a beach, but it was a cloudy day too.
Sad.
The whole thing was just bizarre.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
All right. Well, I don't know when we'll do it then. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know when it'll happen.
Are you going to the Iowa game?
If I can get tickets, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I am in the same boat. One of my brothers is in town. He is going to go to that game, so I am now trying to get tickets because I was going to say we could perhaps tailgate. That would be a good time.
Well, hey, why don't you two just pass yourselves off as less than 8th graders, and you can be part of the red carpet experience.
Oh, wow.
Wow. What? There might be kids that can't use them. I mean, someone's going to need to use them.
It is the day after Thanksgiving. People are out of town. It's a good point.
Have we ever verified if all of these tickets have been used? Do they get enough interest from the kids? I don't
think they want to tell us if they've been used or not.
I don't think
they don't care.
I don't know. But Josh, yes. Yeah. Hey, go ahead.
Oh no, I thought you were just going to say, well, tailgate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Sweet.
Well, from the outset, we played this drop, and this was Markel Jones from Purdue after the game 3 years ago, the last time Purdue played in Memorial Stadium.
We had a winnable game.
Of course, mocking Scott Frost because of the winnable game comment. Well, this is your opportunity, Jack. You're the one that likes to turn hatred outward instead of bringing the hatred inward. So here is your chance to remind folks how disrespected Scott Frost was by this player and
We had a
how
winnable game.
you need to channel this energy into a positive momentum for the team.
I don't know. That was the biggest overblown thing. I mean, yeah, Purdue. I mean, I feel like this is one of those deals. Like when you tell me, John, or somebody tells me during the basketball season that Nebraska basketball fans are too overconfident, and I'm like, listen, there's so much you can critique us for right now. There's so much you can being fatalist, being unfair to the officials, leaving games early, but overconfident is the dumbest critique ever. And if that's going to come up again this week for this game, nobody thinks that, okay? Nobody thinks. There's no one now. Let's just get it out on the record in the world, whether it's the coach, whether it's the team, whether it's the fan base, whether it's any of the four of us right now. There is no one out here that thinks this is some sort of a gimme for Nebraska on the record. There's absolutely a absolute chance Nebraska loses this game. We all know that.
I do want to interrupt you, Jack, because John has guaranteed that Nebraska will win.
Guaranteed it.
Why?
What? I'll tell you.
Because he's not on overreaction, so he wants Ravi and I to deal with hell.
Listen, I explained it last week, and I'll explain it again. Purdue is coming off of two hard-fought games.
That's
Iowa
a good take.
And Wisconsin.
That's true. Factual.
Right? This was my reasoning from last week.
Yes,
okay,
before they had even lost.
Before they'd even lost to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Then I watched what Wisconsin did to Purdue. Did you know they only needed to throw it 8 times?
I did see that.
8 times.
Well, that's because they have Graham Mertz
against Purdue.
Would you want him to throw it more than 8 times?
No, I probably wouldn't either. But also, Purdue is a banged-up team right now. They might be out 3 offensive linemen.
There are a lot of injuries.
A defensive end.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they still have George Karlaftis, who's really
forget.
good, and people are telling me, he's going to single-handedly wreck the Nebraska offensive line. I guarantee a Nebraska win this Saturday in football. It's happening.
It could happen, and it absolutely could not happen. There's no outcome that is going to surprise me after this thing, and I'm not. And the vast majority of Husker fans are not presupposing some outcome to this game either. So just to get it on the record, if anybody wants to come up like, that's a winnable game afterwards. Nobody.
I'm saying it's a winnable game. I'm saying it will be won. All right. So y'all want to, you can all send your hate mail to me if it doesn't happen. And I've already
Even though you'll be on a Creighton game during it. Congratulations.
I said all next week you can introduce.
Oh yeah, we get to call him a moron or something next week, Jack, if he's wrong. Very fun.
The whole week.
Can I just ask a question here real quickly?
No.
Purdue has the winnable game thing. Indiana has the disrespected thing because Scott Frost talked about scheduling them. Iowa we had to look at where we were and where they were at the time. Yeah. I probably can come up with one for the rest of the non-Ohio State, non-Michigan schools in the Big Ten as well. When does Nebraska get their moment like that? What is Nebraska's moment like that? They're never disrespected, I guess.
Yeah, the winnable game.
There it is, right there. Their player said it, taunted Scott Frost, taunted him. Just breezed by him, didn't even acknowledge him. Just
it doesn't do it. It doesn't do it for me, John. It doesn't do it.
That doesn't do it of all the things.
Nope, that's not
Does their head coach need to be a weirdo and run up and down the sidelines, or really look really yoked and underrated? I mean, what does he have to do?
Was the PJ like nobody looked at the PJ Fleck moment like that either? Like culture over talent, like.
Well, that was so stupid because then they all started getting mad at him. Like, oh, why are you scolding your own players? Like, good Lord, people, that is not the point. That's PJ.
How does the Nebraska fan base and the Nebraska team not get as offended at everything as everyone else does? Like, it's almost a
really good question.
It's almost a problem.
We kind of talked about that with Sam McEwen last week about
Nebraska
how
he gets offended when people claim that the sellout streak isn't real.
They get mad at old grudges, but they never can just allow themselves. I mean, look, Jack, I find some of the things you say very funny in ways that you don't mean them to be funny, but and I mean that with no offense. But one of the things that you do nail, in my opinion, is the need to hate the opposition and to find dumb reasons to sometimes hate the opposition. And we don't do that around here for whatever reason. We just give credit to everybody else, or it's well, I guess they can make fun of us. I don't know. I don't understand it.
How about the fact they have the creepiest looking mascot in the
Oh,
Big Ten
that mascot's
Conference?
awesome.
Yeah, that not enough direct. There's no offense taken.
Yeah.
Nothing can offend this fan base. There's that and another school will do. I mean, we'll tell you what. Jim Harbaugh after the game, that whole thing. All these people drive me nuts. How are more people not being driven nuts by the entirety of the Big Ten right now? They're all so annoying. What league are you guys watching? They're all the worst. Why are we not more annoyed with them instead of each other? Again, I asked that question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that leads into the next subject then, because I brought up a point last week here on the program and we bookmarked it and said, you know what? This would be the right time to bring this out when you're on, because nobody is more concerned about the unity of the fan base amongst our regular guests than you are.
That's true.
Good.
But do other fan bases obsess over the need to be unified as much as this fan base does?
No, because they're all normal. They're all more normal. They don't have that problem. They are unified. They're all offended by Scott Frost saying it was a winnable game. They all can't stand their rivals. They all aren't constantly arguing within themselves all the time. So the answer to you is no, because they don't need to.
Why?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, you know that there are other fan bases that don't get along or disagree on the direction of the program, but so why is it such a unique thing for Nebraska when people are like, oh, we can't do this because then the fan base won't be unified? You know what unifies a fan base? Winning.
Yeah, John, you're right. That problem is that hasn't happened. And so, yes, that's continued to be an issue. And then you have got a couple of coaches that fans have particularly, for whatever reason, absolutely hitched their ship to or not to. And that's become their passion. Okay? That's become their passion. And it still is today. Almost anytime I comment on anything, right? It's on Twitter, there are so many replies that are about the people's opinion about the head coach and wanting and everything to be a referendum on whether or not they are right about the head coach. And it started with Frank Solich. It started to Callahan to Pelini getting fired. I don't know if it was quite as much with Riley, and now with Frost as well. That is what this fan base, by and large, and again, social media might not be a good, but that's the thing. Nebraska's had a weird set of events that other schools haven't had, John, to answer your question, where people have, again, hooked themselves specifically and passionately to retention of coaches or getting rid of coaches more than anywhere else right now. And that, to me, is the genesis of this whole thing.
Shane says, in terms of why Nebraska fans don't hate everybody else, he says, or I guess the way that you framed it, Jack, he says, because they'd have to admit that they are equal or beneath their opponents, we still think we're superior. The idea of punching down versus punching up.
There's still an attitude that exists, believe it or not, all these years of getting humbled later. There is still kind of that attitude that exists.
Which is weird, because I was like this in the 90s with Colorado and Kansas State, right? The same way. To me, that doesn't make a difference for me as a fan.
Amazing Daniel disagrees. He says, seriously, Nebraska fans are offended at the entire Big Ten. Every bad thing we do to ourselves is a Big Ten conspiracy.
Well, I would say it's different with the conference than the individual teams.
Okay. And then Ollie says, Jack's assertion that other fan bases don't argue with one another is absolute nonsense.
Yep, that's what I said. Good quote. Yep. Exactly what I said. He nailed it, and I'm totally wrong. I take that back. Yeah, that was my absolute point there.
But, I mean, obviously there have been other schools, other programs who have gone through multiple coaching changes, and certainly there are people that support one versus the other. Is there a reason why it gets more political here? Because that's the best word to come up with, right?
Yeah,
that it's political. This clinging to one coach or another. Because think about it, the reason why there were so many people who loved Pelini was because he was fiery and he went after the refs, and a lot of fans like to go after refs. We used to get the arguments of, he reminds me of my high school coach.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
he represented a certain type of human.
And of course, then the exact opposite took place with Mike Riley, with those same people saying, well, this guy's too nice. He's too soft.
He represents the wussification of football.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, With Frost, it's a little bit different because Frost
yeah.
isn't, as fiery on the officials as Bo is, but he has the cachet of being a championship quarterback and a true lineage, a true bloodline, if they're, a theoretical bloodline lineage to Tom Osborne. And so because of that, it's like, okay, this has to work because he's a member of the Osborne coaching tree.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe you guys can see it for me, but can you think of another school that has had, I would say 3, and I'm talking about Solich, I'm talking about Pelini, and I'm talking about what's happening with Frost right now, that has had 3 in the last 20 years of absolutely divisive decisions on a coach where there was not a clear answer among the fan base, and where the fan base was so passionate in opposite directions on that group of 3 coaches. I don't know if that's you. I mean, you'd have to kind of go back and look, but to me, that's the genesis of getting here, is now being in the 3rd time that you've had something like that. You could argue maybe it was more than that. I don't think so. I think there was a lot more unanimity around Callahan and Riley when they were going.
The best example, and I've used this before in the past, and it's not college to college, but it's college to pro, and that is the Green Bay Packers after Vince Lombardi, because Phil Bankston was his longtime assistant who took over and lasted only 2 years. Then they went to the outsider, Dan Devine, but then they brought Bart Starr in, who had never been a head coach before.
And he was bad.
And he actually lasted the longest. And then after Bart Starr was Forrest Gregg, another Lombardi guy. And it was like they were chasing it for a while until they finally landed on Holmgren. And of course, they got Brett Favre. Alabama's probably another
but Jack, he was asking more about being divisive, right?
Right, but what I'm saying is, it's that idea of staying inside the family,
chasing the ghosts,
and chasing the ghost, because that's where this type of mentality is probably most prevalent.
Well, Oklahoma had it for
because you're like, well, Bart Starr has to be it because he was Lombardi's quarterback. So I'm guess, I don't know what it was like in the 70s and early 80s in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But I got to imagine there may have been similar kind of arguments as to, well, he's got to be the one because he's direct lineage with Vince Lombardi. You know what I mean?
But can you think of it? I mean, even not even multiple, but one firing from another school, and I'm sure there's one you'll think of, let alone 3, though, in 20 years where you got rid of someone who among a huge, well, again, that hasn't happened with Frost, but let's just say we're having that debate about Frost right now. But 2, and now a 3rd conversation about that. Most of the time, I think when someone is let go at the college football level, most of the time, the fan base largely is way, they've kissed him out the door, right? For the vast majority of time. And I don't know. I haven't thought through this, honestly, how many times in college football where it goes the other direction, where it is more like a Solich, where it is more like a Pelini, where it is more like what a Frost would be this year.
Jack, what's interesting, because the team that popped into my mind when you initially asked the question was LSU, just given that they're, in the news this week, or last week rather, with Ed Orgeron. They fired their last 2 coaches, guys who both won national championship. But by the time that those coaches got fired, I would have to imagine that the support was, well above 50% for firing those guys. That said, I mean, I don't really follow a whole lot of LSU people. I'm guessing there were some that were pretty frustrated, but that's the closest team that comes to my mind of they had a lot of success and yet they still moved on from those coaches.
Did you see those 2 LSU talk show hosts post-game guys screaming at each other? That's what happens. That's where we're at. They're starting to enter that land.
Yeah.
And
they won the title 2 years ago.
And obviously they're kind of different circumstances. I still think, and a lot of this can be fed too by the national press. I didn't hear a lot of people decrying the dismissal of Ed Orgeron last week.
Nope. Now, part of that, I will say, in defense of the media, was all the off-field stuff with Ed Orgeron really seems to have it caused a lot of issues down there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you're right. There is not the decrying of firing winning coaches like it happened with Nebraska 2 times. It's really disappeared. Now, I think a lot of that too is that schools just have started doing this more often.
And that is one of the unique things with both Solich and with Bo was that they were both winning coaches.
Yep.
They were both winning coaches. And I do think there is this element. And let's face it, Nebraska cultivated this own image of itself nationally. Nebraska was very much a familial program.
Yep.
Right. And that can happen when you have a guy who was entrenched for 25 years as the head coach and 10 more years before that as an assistant. And Tom Osborne is like, you just carry it down. And so obviously it started with Frank. Now with Bo, I sense that there was a little bit more, support nationally to get rid of Bo, just because he had the audio tape. He was lashing out at officials. He was lashing out in press conferences. And so that made it an easier target. But at the end of the day, when you've now fired two guys who had overwhelmingly winning records, then you start to develop a reputation about yourself.
How many fan bases can go through, and if you surveyed their fan base, has a sizable chunk, I don't know what percentage it is, but that thinks that two of the biggest mistakes in the last 20 years, two just absolutely fatal mistakes, were getting rid of coaches that they had, and then use that.
This may be unique. This may be unique. It really is.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong talking about how you guys are as qualified as anybody to tell me who this is. How big is that block of people?
Oh, dude, I think about it a lot, Jack, because we are now approaching, we're almost 20 years removed from Frank, and it has now been almost 7 years since Bo got fired. And there are times where I just want to get on the mic and scream, you need to move on and get over it. We can't change it, It's so far in the past that I don't think there is any good now in continuing to lament that Frank Solich was fired in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't 04, 05, 06. I understand in that moment still being a little frustrated, but man, we're talking about a generation now of people that were
18
born.
18 years.
Yeah, there are seniors in
November.
high school that were born when he got fired. You got to move on.
Yeah.
But I know that
I know to some of us it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it'll be 18 years this November.
Yeah. And people are still mad.
Yeah, they're obsessed with it.
And Frank's already retired. And Frank got another job, lasted there for over a decade, and is now retired.
Yeah.
Right. So you put two of those, and you have personalities that are particularly emotionally appealing to the segment of the fan base.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you get the weird atmosphere that is around Nebraska. And then I think you just got a fan base too. There's just so many tensions within it. And I know I'm overstating it because of social media, but Josh, you wonder to me why I am hesitant about firing a coach that people are incredibly passionate about right now.
Yeah.
It's because it's made this program less fun over the last 2 years. And that might be a stupid thing to say when the record is what it is, but that's how I feel as a fan.
No, Jack, I'm happy you said that, because one of the questions that I did want to ask you, and we're about out of time, was why do you want there to be kind of unity with the fan base? And I think that how you just said it probably puts it into words as well as, I would have hoped for from you. It has made it less fun. And if you have a fan base, look at how excited everyone was for 2018. It was a united place around here. Even though the team wasn't very good to start, it was one of the more fun seasons we've had in a while, at least at the outset. Now it went sour when they went 4-8. But even then, going into 2019, there was a lot of that excitement. So I think you're onto something. It does make it more fun when everyone's like, "This is great." How do you get over the hump, rather than how do you get to a bowl game?
Right. Not 90% of the people who follow me on Twitter during games are Nebraska fans. They want the same thing that I want. But yet, have you ever watched how those conversations, or you can see it on your own feeds? I'm sure it's the same thing. How those, you say one thing, and then it just goes down into a critique of the team, and then somebody was overly defensive of the team, and that's what I mean. That it's just not that fun. Part of the reason growing up being a Nebraska fan was so fun, Josh. I went to high school and I knew everybody that I was in my friend group, that all of us were on the exact same page about the program. We were different in all kinds of ways, and it still is that way. We've all moved to different parts of the country. We're different politically. We're different in all these other ways. But we all, at least still on Saturdays, we have a group text and we can get together on this thing, and we all want the same thing. Maybe the only thing we all want the same thing on anymore. And that feeling within the fan base, that used to be there a whole lot more. And that was what was so fun about the whole thing. Again, the lens of social media hasn't helped. But there's no doubt that things have changed since that time. And that's why that's what I keep going back to and thinking about when people say, why do you care so much about that stuff? Because it was way more fun. That's it. Yeah. It was fun in the way that it made relationships and the way you related to other people were enhanced by that, I thought.
Well, it was a good conversation, but unfortunately it went too long. We can't get to what else I wanted to get to today. So we'll just have to save the Matt Davison for Congress talk for another time.
Well, I mean, I can just give you the breaking news. I talked to Matt about an hour and a half ago.
And he's announcing. When's the press conference?
And he told me he is not interested in running for office, and he is just going to concentrate on Nebraska athletics. So there you go. There is the answer.
Matt Davison says stick to sports.
Lane Kiffin
said he was staying at Tennessee. I mean,
wow. Also, Jack, didn't have time to ask you about one of your one-time Twitter followers, Steve Sipple, in the column that he wrote about Fred Hoiberg. Out of respect for Fred, it's time to attach real expectations to Husker hoops, but we're out of time for that as well.
Well, we can talk next week after the Colorado. If they lose to Colorado, I'll probably be a basket case next Monday.
Oh, good Lord. Here we go. All right. Well, we'll wait until then. Until that moment, congratulations, Matt Davison, not for Congress.
Not for Congress.
Darn, I was kind of curious, my morbid curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I was going to ask you too, Jack, who then to replace Matt in the broadcast booth, but we can't even have fun with that. So
I don't know. We should have started some
congressman and a broadcaster at the same time. It's not like they work in Washington. They take vacations all the time.
That's true. They do have a lot of vacation.
Back. Yeah. Piece of cake.
I don't know, but there's a great segment. Who should be the next color guy?
Yeah,
there you go. Or girl.
Yeah. Or girl. There you go.
True. All right. Well, have a great week. Get your Purdue angst up. Get your angry tweets. Get ready for Greg and Lincoln, our lone Purdue fan out there, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye, Jack.
Ladies and gentlemen. We are broadcasting live from the Host Coffee studio. Still to come, Steve Sipple will join us, and we'll talk more about the football team. I got other questions.
Man, I have so many emails. Also, speaking of Sip, I don't know if I've ever opened up my inbox during a show and seen this many emails about a column that somebody wrote that wasn't like Dirk, ripping on Bo back in the day. People have some takes on that Sipple column. A lot of takes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Coming up, more of that and a lot of fun.
Awesome.
On the program. And I guarantee a Husker win. 16-20 the Zone.